All right, welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really interesting stuff to look at today.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're going to be diving into all this source material you guys have sent us about NXU, this company listed on Nasdaq and
Oh, yeah, NXU. Have heard of them.
yeah, and their stock has been all over the place. So
Sounds like fun.
yeah, so we're going to try to make sense of it, for everyone.
Okay, yeah.
So to kick things off, their stock price, get this, shot up 619% just today. And we're talking crazy trading volume, like 475 million shares. Usually it's more around 7 million.
Wow, so something's definitely going on.
Yeah, something big is happening. But then, just a few days ago, it was trading at 24 cents. So, is this the start of a major comeback? Or is it just another, blip before it crashes back down?
Well, it's hard to tell, but I think looking at their overall financial health is key here. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Got to see the big picture.
Especially with penny stocks like NXU. Even the smallest price change can cause huge percentage swings.
That's true.
It's one of the reasons they can be so volatile.
So, all right, let's get into it. According to these sources, they've got, let me see, about $2.21 million in cash. But their cash flow, get this, is negative.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, which is a little concerning.
Yeah, a little bit, especially when you look at their burn rate.
Oh, right, the burn rate.
How quickly they're spending that cash.
Right.
And at this rate, they've got less than a year.
It's less than a year.
Yeah, less than a year of runway left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big red flag.
Okay, so less than a year. So if they don't turn things around, they're going to be out of cash?
Pretty much.
Oh, man, that's scary. But at least it looks like their debt-to-equity ratio is pretty low, only 0.3%.
Okay.
So at least they're not drowning in debt, right?
Yeah, that is a positive. But, debt isn't always a bad thing.
Right.
Sometimes you can borrow to fuel growth.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
But in NXU's case, I think the bigger issue is their profitability.
Or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what good is low debt if you're not making any money, right?
Exactly.
And let me see here. Their return on assets is negative 3.03%, and their return on equity is even worse, negative 6.43%.
Yeah, and their gross profit margin is negative 101.58%.
Wait, negative 101%? How is that even possible?
It's definitely unusual. It means that it costs them more to produce their stuff than they're bringing in through sales.
So they're losing money on every sale?
Pretty much.
Oh, okay. So far we've got negative cash flow, a burn rate that's, like a ticking time bomb.
Yes.
And they're losing money on every sale. Anything else we need to worry about?
Well, there's their annual revenue. It's only $496,000, but their net loss is $20.3 million.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so they're not bringing in nearly enough to cover their expenses.
Right. And then there's their market cap. It's just $27.24 million.
Right.
That's tiny, isn't it?
It is. It indicates they're a micro-cap company,
Yep.
which means they're more susceptible to, these big price swings.
Right. Makes sense.
Part of what makes them attractive to certain investors, but also increases the risk.
For sure. Okay, so we've got this small company, super volatile, burning through cash, not making any profit. And their current ratio is 0.91, which that's not good, is it?
No, not really. A current ratio below 1 usually means they might struggle to meet their short-term financial obligations.
So basically all signs point to a pretty tough situation for NXU.
Yeah, it seems like their financial situation needs some serious attention.
Okay, but even with all that, there are still those analysts predicting sales growth, right?
Right.
Why are they so optimistic when everything else seems to be, pointing in the wrong direction?
It's a good question. Maybe they see something in their market or industry.
Okay.
But it's also worth noting that there's only one analyst covering them right now.
So maybe not the most reliable prediction then.
Could be. Always good to consider the source.
And NXU has been making some quarter changes. They've adjusted stock and compensation for officers. And there's even talk of a potential reverse stock split.
Interesting.
Yeah, so are they trying to fix things or, are these changes just making investors nervous?
Hard to say for sure. It's like trying to read tea leaves, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. So many mixed signals. But, there's one big issue we haven't even touched on yet.
What's that?
The potential for NXU to be delisted from Nasdaq.
Oh, right.
That's a big deal.
It is. For those who don't know, being listed on an exchange like Nasdaq, it brings a certain, prestige and legitimacy.
Right.
And to stay listed, you have to meet certain financial and regulatory standards.
Right.
And if they don't, they can get delisted.
And that's bad news for everyone involved, right?
It is. Investors get nervous, the stock price drops, it can create this like downward spiral.
So for a company already in trouble, delisting could be like the final blow, right?
It could be.
Yeah. And this isn't the first time they've faced this threat.
Really?
Yeah, they managed to regain compliance before, but then, found themselves in trouble again.
So a bit of a pattern then.
Yeah, that's concerning, right?
It is a bit of a red flag. Shows they might struggle to meet those requirements even after getting a second chance.
So even if they regain compliance again, keeping it during the monitoring period could be really tough, especially with their current finances.
Right. So definitely something to watch closely.
Okay, so we've got this company struggling financially, a history of volatility, and they might get delisted.
I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed, to be honest.
Well, we should probably press on, actually.
Okay.
There's still their earnings report, big event coming up.
Oh, right. That's scheduled for March 14th, 2025.
That could change things for them big time.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
Exactly. Will they exceed expectations, or will it confirm everyone's fears?
The suspense is killing me. So what are the analysts saying? Any predictions?
Well, remember, only one analyst is covering NXU right now, and they're projecting an EPS of negative 29 cents and zero revenue.
Zero revenue. Seriously.
Yeah.
Ouch. That's rough, even for them. But we should probably take that prediction, with a grain of salt.
Probably a good idea, yeah.
Especially considering their recent history. They missed estimates in Q2 and Q1 of 2024.
Right, they did. Reported negative 37 cents EPS in Q2, and even worse in Q1, negative 91 cents.
So a pattern of, not doing so well. But honestly, with all this volatility, who knows what their actual report will look like?
That's true. It could be anything.
All right, so their earnings report, that's definitely going to be a nail-biter. It could make or break them. So everyone listening, mark your calendars.
It's like watching a high-stakes poker game. We have no idea who's going to win.
Yeah, it really is. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, but we've only scratched the surface. There's still so much more to uncover about NXU's story. We'll be back to delve deeper into their journey. Will this roller coaster ride end with a climb or a plunge? Stay tuned to find out.
See you guys in part 2. All right, welcome back to our deep dive into NXU. We uncovered some pretty intense stuff in that first part. Remember, negative cash flow, burn rate through the roof, and they might get kicked off Nasdaq Q.
It was a lot, yeah. But I think it's really important, to understand these challenges if we want to, figure out what's going to happen to NXU.
Right.
And believe it or not, some analysts are still predicting sales growth.
It's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's like on the one hand, they're struggling, they're tiny, all this financial trouble, and then you've got analysts saying they're going to grow. It's like, are they looking at the same companies?
It's a bit of a head scratcher, yeah. But, maybe there's something to this growth potential.
Like, what could possibly make them think that?
Right.
A company burning through cash like crazy, barely making any revenue, and they're going to grow.
Yeah, it's a good question. Maybe they see something in, their specific market.
Okay, yeah.
Or maybe the overall industry is doing well, and they think NXU can, ride that wave.
So, maybe there's something special about their business that we haven't figured out yet. Some hidden gem,
Yeah, maybe.
And they're making all these changes, with their stock and compensation stuff. Maybe that's a good sign.
Possibly. Maybe they're trying to be more efficient, attract more investors.
Yeah, and there's still that talk about a reverse stock split. So just to remind everyone, that means they would combine their shares, right?
Yeah, so instead of having 10 shares at a low price, you'd have one share at a higher price.
Okay.
It's a way to boost the share price artificially.
Right.
So they can meet those minimum requirements that Nasdaq Q has.
But it doesn't really change the actual value of the company, right?
No, it's more of a cosmetic fix than a real solution.
Okay.
And sometimes it could even backfire. Investors get nervous. They see it as a sign of desperation.
Right. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. It still doesn't change what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so back to those analysts. They're really putting a lot of faith in NXU to, completely turn things around.
They are. They're betting that they can fix their cash burn, become profitable, and, get investors excited again.
And all while trying not to get delisted.
Yeah, all while doing that, too.
Wow, that's a lot to ask.
It is a tall order. But, let's try to be a little optimistic for a second.
Okay.
Let's imagine some scenarios where they could pull it off.
All right, I'm game. Give me some hope here.
All right, so what if they secure a huge contract with a big company?
Oh, okay.
Or maybe they partner with someone who opens up, like, a whole new market for them.
Yeah, I could see that making a difference.
Right. That could really boost their revenue and maybe even make them profitable.
That's like finding a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. What else?
Well, they could also get lucky with, changes in their industry.
Okay, yeah.
Like, what if demand for their product suddenly explodes?
Or their competitors, like, totally mess up and NXU can swoop in and take your customers.
Exactly. But, they'd still need to have their own act together to capitalize on that.
Right, so they need a combination of, like, internal strength and some external luck.
Yeah, it's like a ship trying to sail through a storm.
Mm,
You need a skilled captain, a strong crew, and a little bit of wind at your back.
I love that analogy.
But, even with all that, it still feels a bit like a long shot.
Yeah, it does.
And we have to remember, for every positive scenario, there's a negative one, too.
Right, of course.
Like, what if their cash burn gets even worse?
Oh, yeah.
They might have to make some really drastic cuts, which could hurt them in the long run.
And if they get delisted, that would be, like, a huge hit to their reputation.
Definitely. And, there's always the risk of something totally unexpected happening.
Like what?
A recession, people suddenly stop buying their product.
Oh, right.
Or even just like a bad article or some negative stuff on social media, that could really hurt their stock price.
It feels like they're walking on a tightrope with all these dangers around them.
Yeah, it's a precarious situation for sure.
I think this whole deep dive into NXU, it's not just about, like, analyzing this one company.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
There are some, like, bigger lessons here, even for people who don't invest in the stock market. Like,
Sure.
this whole thing is a reminder that the world of finance, it's full of surprises and things can change really quickly.
That's so true. And it shows how important it is to, diversify your investment.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
And even beyond investing, there's stuff here about, like, risk management and decision making, things we can all use in our lives, right?
Absolutely. Always do your research before making a big decision.
Yep.
Whether it's buying a house, starting a business, or even just like what car to get.
And be ready for things to change.
Yes, have a backup plan because things rarely go exactly how we expect.
Okay, so we've talked about the good, the bad, and the lessons learned, but let's circle back to NXU for a minute.
Okay.
They're facing some big problems, like, what can they actually do to fix this?
Yeah, that's the real question, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's one thing to talk about the problems, but finding solutions, that's tough.
Especially for a company like NXU, right?
Exactly. Well, I think they have to start with the cash burn.
Okay.
That's the most urgent thing.
They're spending way more than they're earning, and their cash isn't going to last forever.
Right. They need to stop the bleeding, like ASP.
So what can they do? What are some, like, practical steps?
Well, they need to look at their expenses really closely and figure out where they can cut back.
Okay.
Maybe renegotiate some contracts, make their production process more efficient, things like that.
Maybe even reduce their workforce.
It's a tough decision, but sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah, I get it. But they also need to make more money, right?
Of course. We've talked about sales growth, but how realistic is that for them right now?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Oh, they need a really solid plan, right? If they can market their product better, expand into new markets, maybe come up with some like really innovative ideas that make them stand out,
Okay, yeah.
then yeah, I think sales growth is possible.
So it's like they have to save money, but also spend money to grow.
Exactly. It's a balancing act.
And on top of all that, they have to deal with this whole Nasdaq Q thing.
Right. Can't forget about that.
They have to meet those requirements, otherwise they're in big trouble.
Yeah. And that might mean doing some, drastic things like that reverse stock split we talked about.
Which has its own risks, right?
Exactly. It's like they're juggling chainsaws while riding a unicycle on a tightrope.
This is getting intense. All right, let's take a deep breath here and try to, like, think this through clearly.
Good idea. Okay, so when it comes to NASDAQ, there are a few things they could try. One option is, focus on their financials.
Right.
If they can show consistent growth, reduce their cash burn, and improve their profitability, that would look good.
Yeah. It would show that they're serious about fixing things.
Exactly.
Not just, like, meeting the bare minimum, but actually becoming a healthy business.
And that's where their leadership really matters.
Right. They need someone who can make tough decisions and guide the company through this.
Absolutely.
But even with the best leadership, sometimes things are just out of your control, right?
That's true. And that brings us to another big factor. Investors' sentiment.
Right. We talked about how their stock price is super sensitive to, like, any news or rumors.
Yeah. So what are investors actually looking for? What are they watching closely?
That's a good question.
Well, they want to see signs of stability, right?
Okay. Yeah.
They want to know that NXU is tackling that cash burn, becoming more profitable, and getting their finances in order.
So they're not just looking for a quick fix. They want to see real long-term solutions.
Exactly. And they're watching the Nasdaq Q situation very closely, too.
That makes sense.
Any news about that will have a big impact on how investors feel.
It's a huge deal for them. If they can stay listed, that's a big win. But if they get delisted, that's like a disaster.
Right.
And beyond all that, investors also want to see, growth potential.
Yeah, they want to believe that NXU has a future, that they can be successful.
So they're not just looking for a company that can survive. They want one that can thrive.
Exactly. So NXU needs to, communicate their vision clearly, show investors what they're planning.
And be honest about their progress. Right?
Yes, they need to build trust and show that they can deliver results.
So it's not just about what they do, but also how they talk about it.
Exactly. They need to create a story that investors will get excited about.
Like they're pitching a movie to a studio, they need a great story and a director who can make it happen.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. So NXU has to balance, solving their immediate problems with their long-term goals.
And it takes planning, skill, and probably a little bit of luck, too.
Definitely.
Wow, we've covered a lot in the second part.
We have. We've looked at the different paths NXU could take, the challenges, and what might happen in the end.
It's been a wild ride so far.
It has. And in the final part, we'll bring it all together and give our concluding thoughts.
Will they make it or not? Stay tuned to find out. All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Man, this whole journey with NXU, it's been a wild one, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Lots of ups and downs, for sure.
Remember their stock price?
Yeah.
Bouncing all over the place.
Right.
And then we dug into their financials. Not exactly a pretty picture, right?
Not really? No?
But then, you have these analysts saying, hey, sales are going to grow.
No.
They see something we don't.
Yeah, it's like they're looking at a completely different company sometimes.
Mm-mm.
Makes you wonder.
So before we wrap this up, let's remind everyone, what have we learned about NXU?
Okay, so we started with that crazy stock performance, right? Trying to understand those huge swings.
Yeah.
And key comes down to their market cap. Being so small makes them super volatile.
Right. Any little thing could send that stock flying or crashing.
Exactly. And then we looked at their financial statements. Remember, not a great sight.
Not at all. They're spending more than they're making, that negative cash flow.
Yeah, and burning through cash so fast. Less than a year left at this rate.
Yeah, it's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
And then their profitability. Oof, not good.
That negative gross profit margin over 100%. How does that even happen?
It really makes you question their whole business model, right?
Yeah.
Can they even survive like this?
And then hanging over all of this is that potential delisting from Nasdaq Q.
Yeah, that could be the final blow, honestly.
So where do we go from here? What's our take on their future?
Honestly, it's tough to be optimistic.
Yeah, they're facing a lot of problems.
They are. And their history, well, it doesn't exactly inspire confidence, does it?
It does feel like they're always on the verge of, complete disaster.
But, it's not impossible for a company to turn things around.
Okay, so what would that look like for NXU? What do they need to do?
Well, first, they've got to stop that cash burn.
Yeah, definitely.
Might mean some hard choices, Cut costs, maybe restructure things, even sell off some assets.
Get things under control before it's too late.
Exactly. And then they need a business model that actually works.
Right. Gotta make money somehow.
Find ways to increase revenue, become profitable, show investors they can do it.
And all while dealing with Nasdaq Q, making sure they don't get delisted.
Yep, it's a lot.
It's like they're climbing Mount Everest with one hand tied behind their back.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners?
Well, I think it's a reminder that investing in, penny stocks especially, it's risky business.
Yeah, do your research, understand the company's finances, and be ready for those big swings.
And even then, no guarantees.
Exactly. Companies can fail, even the ones that look promising. And sometimes the struggling ones surprise us.
It's like, what's a good analogy? It's like surfing. Gotta be ready for those waves, know how to ride them, but also when to get out.
Love that.
And, even beyond investing, NXU's story shows the importance of, being able to adapt, being resilient.
Absolutely. They're in a tough spot, but they're still fighting.
So even when things look bleak, there's always hope, right?
Yeah, there's always a chance for a comeback.
So that's NXU, a company on the edge. And for everyone listening, remember, the world of finance, it's unpredictable, it's full of risk, but also opportunity.
Stay informed, stay curious, and keep learning.
Maybe someday we'll revisit NXU, see what happened. Did they pull it off?
That would be interesting.
Until then, happy investing, everyone.